So I will never forget the conversation that I had with Sandra. Sandra was a woman who booked a sales call with me in my first year in business. It was probably my first month or two in business, something like that. And at the time, I had a program or sort of a package, I guess. And the price was, I think it was $400 for a 3-month package, which super underpriced, but I was new and everyone starts somewhere. And Sandra seemed really interested and she was kind of humming and hawing, and out of the blue, something just like took over my body. And I was like, oh, I'll just give you 50% off. And I remember she said, why would you give it to me for so cheap? Like, I appreciate that, but it just makes me think that I'm not going to get the help that I need. And I was like flabbergasted. I was like, what? Because honestly, you'd think if you give a 50% off discount that someone would just be like, oh my God, thank you so much. But really what happened is it made her think that my offer was cheap. So pricing is a little bit of an art, right? We don't want to charge too high, but we don't want to charge too low either. And when it comes to pricing, there are a lot of mistakes that coaches and practitioners make. And so I'm going to cover 7 in this episode, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of insight about your prices, because what to charge is definitely a huge pain point. And I get it. I think everyone, regardless of their level in business, struggles to raise their price, doubts themselves, wonders, is this too much? Is this too little? Like, I think a lot of us have a lot of doubts around our pricing, like myself included. Okay. So hopefully what this episode will do, help you choose a price point that is fair to your audience, but also is fair to you. Okay. So number 1, when it comes to the deadly pricing mistakes that you might make, is charging too little. And that story I just told you about with Sandra, that's what I'm talking about. You don't want to be the bargain bin coach, right? So Walmart versus say Louis Vuitton, right? We know when we're going to Walmart that we're not going to get good quality. Right. And we often see the price of something and we think it's cheap, but we're like, oh, but the quality is not going to be there. Okay. So sometimes when we price too low, people question your value, right? Because no one brags about getting coaching from the cheapest option, right? Clients who pay low prices, they do tend to be the ones who complain, the ones who ghost, the ones who don't do the work, and the ones who are very high maintenance. So when I first started my coaching business and I was charging less than $500 for a 3-month program, I offered unlimited email support within that program. And I would get clients that literally emailed me like sometimes up to 15 times a day. And I'm actually not kidding. I did have a client who would regularly email me up to 15 times a day. And it was crazy. It was exhausting. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is actually part of what made me raise my prices, because I'm like, wow, I'm doing so much work, right? And it's just really interesting, but the more people pay for a program, the better clients they tend to be. And part of this is because usually when someone invests in something that's a little bit higher ticket, it's usually not their first investment. I mean, sometimes it is, but usually they've said yes to themselves or invested in themselves before. Maybe not necessarily in health, but they've done something where they have invested in themselves, right? And so they have done typically a little bit more work, and they tend to be your lowest priced or your lowest maintenance clients, not your lowest price clients, your lowest maintenance clients. So not only do we turn people away when we charge too little because we look like we're like the bargain shop, but also the people who do work with us tend to really take up the most of our time, right? So we really need to find that sweet spot for charging. And honestly, if you were having this experience, if you're having clients who feel like are taking up all your time, they're taking advantage of you, they're blowing through boundaries, it's probably a sign that you need to charge a little bit higher, okay? Pricing mistake number 2 is hourly pricing, right? This is the trading time for money trap. I talk about this all the time. And a lot of us start this way. And I definitely started this way because the only way that I had ever accessed health and wellness services was by the hour, right? I saw a naturopath. I paid by the hour. I went and had a massage. I paid by the hour. I had an acupuncture appointment. I paid by the hour. And so when I became a holistic nutritionist, that's what I did. And I remember I started charging, I believe, $80 an hour. And honestly, it felt like a raise because when I was working in forestry, I was making $25 an hour. And so $80 an hour, I was like, whoop, whoop, like what a huge raise. But I quickly found out that it was almost impossible for me to hit my goals charging hourly. Okay. Because truthfully, if you want to charge hourly, then you gotta pack your appointment. And the only way for you to make more money is to work with more clients. And so if you are some sort of licensed professional and you're taking insurance for your money, for your income from your clients, that's the business model that you end up in. And honestly, some people love it, but it's super exhausting. And we have so many students come into HCA who are counselors or naturopathic doctors or dietitians. So people who were taking insurance and they literally had like 8 to 10 client appointments a day. And even though they're making good money, like maybe they're making 6 figures, they're exhausted. And they really want to work with people on a deeper level and in a more intimate way. Okay. So if you are taking insurance, you can definitely get booked, but it is very exhausting and it does infringe on your freedom. Okay. But if you're like me, a registered holistic nutrition who's not licensed, I can't take insurance from people, right? So basically, I have to market. Because people aren't just going to come to me because I'm someone who is going to take their insurance, right? So I'm trying to charge $80 an hour in order to make, $8,000 a month and hit my 6 figures. I need 80 appointments a month, probably more than that. I'm not doing the proper math. I probably need 100 appointments a month. And honestly, it was just impossible to get with online marketing because then I also had to do my content. I also had to do the back end of my business. And I honestly found myself working 50 to 60 hours a week. Okay. Now, the problem with charging hourly is you don't get people results, right? Because people aren't going to get a result in a single session. Right? Like, let's say you are a fitness trainer. If somebody comes to you and books one session with you as a personal trainer and then never comes again, are they going to lose the weight? Probably not. Right? And so really in the health and wellness field, when people have complex issues, we really want to be working with them over a longer time frame. And so that's why I recommend having a premium offer, a premium high ticket offer, and just one. Because truthfully, instead of needing to find maybe like 50 to 100 clients a month to keep your schedule full, you only need to find, say, 4 clients a month, right? Because if you have 4 clients who are paying $2,000 each, that is $8,000 a month, and that is your 6 figures, or at least I think it's $96,000. Okay. So please don't charge hourly. Number 3, we just talked about, is not having a premium offer. So I am a big proponent of a high ticket offer. This can be a one-on-one, it can be a group, or it can be a hybrid, a combination of the both. Either will work, and you can work with people in whatever container you want. But truthfully, making sales, especially in the online world, is the hardest thing. So ideally, we want to have to make less sales to hit our goal, especially if we have a small audience. And if you're listening to this podcast, my guesses are that you probably have a Instagram following like under 30,000, under 20,000. Me personally, I think I have 13,000. Like, I have a small audience too. And if I tried to sell only low ticket, so only low priced offers, I would really struggle and I would probably be broke. But truthfully, I have a high ticket offer, and really I only need to make a few sales a month to, make multiple 6 figures. Okay. So when we have a premium offer, not only do we need to make less sales and it's way more feasible to hit our income goals, but also we work with people on a deeper level. Because truthfully, if someone goes to you and books one session with you, maybe sees you again 3 months later, they're probably not going to be shouting you from the rooftops because it's probably going to be pretty hard to solve their problem within just 2 sessions. But let's say someone works with you in that intimate container for 3 months, maybe you charge $2,000. And during that time, they actually see a full resolution or maybe 80% resolution of their problem. They're going to be telling their friends about you. You are going to be getting referrals. Okay. So really, really important to have a premium offer. Okay. Number 4 pricing mistake that people make is confusing pricing or just having too many options, right? This is sort of like the cheese factory menu syndrome. Or for example, if you've ever been to Thailand, I don't know if you've ever been to Thailand, but when I went to Thailand, they would have these menus that were like 10 pages long, and it was like crazy, but it was like every variation of every single type of meal. And I honestly was always so overwhelmed. But the good thing about Thailand is the meal was always great, no matter what I picked. But we don't want to have too many options because truthfully, your people, like, they don't really understand what they need. You do, because you are the expert, right? You're the expert. And so if they come to your website or whatever, your Instagram, and they see 3 different options and they don't understand the value between each, then they're not going to really understand what to choose. And likely, if they do decide to work with you, they are going to choose the cheaper option. Okay. So I truly recommend only having one program and one price. The difference is if you have a premium versus a basic. So for example, one of my clients, Cara, she is a fatigue coach. And so she has her basic, which is just the group program. But then people can upgrade into the premium where they get some one-on-one calls and they get access to lab testing. So you can see right there is actually a pretty obvious difference between the value, right? Group, you're just getting action to the group calls, the methodology, right? The program. But if you upgrade, then you're going to get a certain number of one-on-one calls with her, and then you're also going to get to run the lab. So there is a really clear distinction, but I really don't recommend having more than 2 prices, and it should always be for kind of the same version of the program. All right. Number 5, is not raising prices, right? So if you've been charging the same prices for 2+ years, you're probably underpricing, right? Because more experience equals more value. So if your clients are getting really good results, then you should really be charging accordingly, okay? Now, you don't need to be raising your prices like crazy, but maybe just consider doing it incrementally. Because keep in mind, like, we're in the world of inflation, like the cost of living has gone up. We don't want to be charging prices from 2 years ago. We're in a situation right now where all businesses are raising their prices to account for inflation. Like, you need to do the same, right? So you should be increasing your prices, I would say, at least once a year, or maybe every few clients you work with, or maybe a percentage every few clients you work with, right? But you can always notify your audience in advance. This is actually a really great selling point for your program. You can say, hey, I'm going to be increasing the price. So if you want to get in at the current price, then get in now. So it's actually a really good piece of urgency to compel people to take action, right? Number 6 is just pulling a price out of thin air, right? And this is very easy to do, especially in the kind of the coaching world, the practitioner world, because there's not really like a set amount, right, that we can work on, right? Everyone is charging different prices, and people might be charging, $100 versus $1,000 for seemingly the same thing. So it's really hard to know what to charge. Now, I believe in fair and intentional pricing, okay? But what makes pricing fair is when it's based on reality, right? So an exercise that I always have my HCA students do is I have them go through their expenses. So get a sense of what their monthly business expenses are. So maybe that's like $2,000 a month in business expenses. What are their monthly personal expenses? Maybe that's $4,000, a month in personal expenses. And you have to account for all expenses, right? So groceries, rent, mortgage, gas, like utilities, like all of it. We want to make sure we are accounting for all of it and just see what that number is. Because if you are not charging accordingly, then you're not even going to be able to pay your bills. And then you're going to be in a constant state of stress. So for example, let's say, I'm just going to use a really clean number. Like, let's say my expenses are $5,000 a month. Okay. And I have my program and it's 3 months. And it's, I'm going to try to charge $500 for it. Well, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to find, 10 clients a month at 500 to just break even. So really, I'm probably going to have to get like 15 clients a month. And that might seem like a lot, right? 15 clients a month can feel like a lot. So what if I raise my price to, let's say, $2,500? Then really 2 clients a month is going to help me break even. Okay, well, 2 clients a month doesn't seem like that bad. And 4 clients a month is going to help me get 10K months, right? Which is going to help me get 120 grand a year. Okay. So we want to make sure we are basing our prices in reality. That is intentional, but it's also fair, right? Because it's actually based on our expenses and our needs. It's not just a random number. Okay. Number 7 is not handling pricing objections. Okay. I know we're hearing the pricing objection, it's too expensive, or I can't afford it, all the time. Okay. Now, if you're getting a ton of pricing objections, it might more indicate your sales skills. Usually when we're getting a ton of pricing objections, it indicates that we need to do a better job of explaining the value of our offer, right? So we really need to focus on like the outcome and what people can achieve from it versus just the things they get. Like, oh, you get some calls and you get a Facebook group and you get some email support. Like, great, but people don't understand why that's important. Like, sell the dream, like sell the outcome, right? But truthfully, what I will say is sometimes it is about the money and sometimes people just can't afford it. And that's okay too. But if you just hang up the phone, then you're missing out on an opportunity to maybe educate them on the value. So I'm going to give you a really, really great tip right now for when someone mentions they can't afford it or something about the money. All you need to do is say, hey, So let's say we have Jane, and Jane just said, you know what? I don't know if I can afford that right now. I would say, hey, Jane, I totally understand. Like, there's definitely, an investment to working with me. And, it's never my intention to pressure you into something, that you can't afford. So did you want to end the call now? Or did you want to maybe discuss payment plans or a way that we could potentially make this work? That is called permission-based selling, because what's happening there is you're actually giving them an out. Because if they want out, you don't want to make them uncomfortable and force them to be on the phone with you. So just let them go, right? Let them go. But maybe they're going to say, oh, you have a payment plan? Like, oh, maybe let's talk about how we can make this work. And sometimes what I ask people is like, what is affordable for you? And I just see if we're even in the ballpark, right? Because sometimes it's like, okay, well, what if you pay this now and then we'll get you to pay the other one later? Or sometimes I'll customize a payment plan for them, okay? All right, so those are your 7 deadly pricing mistakes. One thing I want to leave you with when it comes to understanding what to charge, we can overthink it a lot, but really just start somewhere. If you are undercharging, you are going to quickly understand that you are undercharging, because you're going to get those high maintenance clients. You're going to get people blasting through your boundaries. You're going to find that you're working a lot, not making a lot of money, and you will learn very quickly that it is time to raise your prices. So don't overthink it and just start somewhere. All right, my friend, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I will see you next Monday, same time, same place, where I help you become wealthy AF.